Hey everyone, Father Scott Vanderveer here, today with a reflection on the topic of honesty. I remember when I was in the seminary, and one of the requirements of being there, all of us studying to be priests, was to go to confession every month, once a month. Now, before that time, I had a relationship with confession that was a lot like a lot of Catholics. I would go to confession usually twice a year during the Advent time in advance of Christmas and the Lent time in advance of Easter. I would be preparing for those holy times. But in the seminary, they required us to go monthly. They said that that was the way to make real spiritual progress. And they required us to go to our spiritual director, who was a priest in all of our cases. Today, my spiritual director is actually a sister of St. Joseph, interestingly. But at that time, my spiritual director was a member of the faculty, and so I would go to him every month and have the experience of the sacrament of reconciliation, confession. And I would go through the 10 Commandments. When have I not put God first? When have I taken the Lord's name in vain, not kept holy the Sabbath? When have I been disrespectful to my parents, not honored life? When have I not been pure? When have I not been honest and not good with other people's possessions? When have I coveted other people's things or wanted something that wasn't mine? I go through all 10 commandments. Then sometimes I would go through other things too, like the 7 deadly sins. I would remember an acronym, AAPESLG, which I remembered as Alcoholics Anonymous, Physical Education, and Don't Be a Slug, SLG. And that was for anger, avarice, pride, envy, sloth, lust, and gluttony. Sometimes I had some other methods too. But here's what I found. When I went to confession monthly, I found myself admitting that I was lying a little bit every month. They were white lies. They were minor lies. They were things that I held myself lightly excused from. Like when I would arrive late somewhere, I would just about always say, "I'm so sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare." Sometimes that was true, but sometimes the reason I was 7 minutes late is because traffic slowed me down by 2 minutes, and the 5 minutes that I left later than I possibly could was the other reason. It was impossible for anyone to prove or disprove whether I ran into traffic, and so it felt like a way to let them know, I didn't mean to disrespect you, I just ran into some misfortune. What that meant was that by the time I went to confession for 3 months in a row, saying that I had maybe told 5 lies in that month, I found that my confessor would say to me, "Sounds like you've got a little bit of a struggle with lying." And I was shocked. I said, "Struggle with lying? No, I'm a very honest person. I mean, occasionally I tell little white lies. But do you see how that is? I would tell people I liked something when I didn't. They'd say, "Did you see that movie?" And I didn't want to sound like I didn't know what I was talking about. And so I would say, "Oh yeah, I don't remember it much. Tell me more about what you thought of it." I would tell people when I was late that I was caught in traffic, even though I just left the house late. When that confessor said to me, "Sounds like you have a little struggle with lying," I realized, whoa, this frequency of confession is helping me to realize that there's a gap between how I see myself and the values that I have and the way that I live. Lies are perhaps one of the most foundational sins because they wind up being a distortion of reality. They do not call the devil the prince of anything other than lies. The devil does not make our lives difficult by violating anger or pride or lust or gluttony. The devil comes at it a much more subtle way by making us think that bad things are good. Nobody in the time of World War II was allowed to support the Nazi regime by thinking they were doing evil. They told themselves the lie that it was good. And that's always how sin works. So rooting out lying feels like a really important thing for us, because that's going to be the gateway to everything unwholesome that comes in our life. If we're honest, often the time that we're not fully truthful with others is because we're trying to protect our image or our reputation. If we were to admit that we like finishing what we're working on before leaving to meet our friend for coffee, and that we care more about finishing what we're doing than about their time, that would reveal a selfishness that we don't want to see and we don't want others to see in us. And so it's a lot easier for us to say, oh gosh, you know how traffic is. Traffic's so hard. I ran into construction and maybe we passed a truck, so we make it somewhat true. But when we realize that sometimes we're protecting our image more than we're protecting what is real, we realize that we're in slippery territory. The definition of mental health by Scott Peck, one of the most renowned authors of the late 20th century, is mental health is a commitment to reality no matter the cost. It's a commitment to what's real, what's true, no matter how painful it is. Maybe that would be a good way for us to realize that it's more important for us to protect the truth and what's real than it is to protect our image. Protecting our image is protecting this mirage, this projection of what we want people to think of us and what we want to think of ourselves. Aligning our life with what's real is what allows us to be genuine and sincere and deep down. There is an old Turkish proverb that says that you should either appear as you are or become what you seem. Either appear as you really are, show up as you really are, or become what you're projecting in front of others. If you want to be seen as noble and virtuous, become noble and virtuous. Or if you want to be a little bit of someone who cuts corners and looks out for number one no matter what, then let that be seen. Don't pretend that's not true if that is what's true. If that is a way you're not intending to change your lifestyle, then let it be visible to yourself and to everyone else. Some thoughts about honesty today. It took some honesty to share that with you, and I hope you don't think less of me that I've had a little bit of a struggle with honesty in my life. But it's by sharing struggles, showing up for each other and saying, oh, me too, that we really give each other the best gift possible. May God bless you in your struggle with virtue and in your desire to become just exactly as you see.